Another thing, Steve Ratner, that the president indicated yesterday, which he's been reluctant to do in the past, is that, yes, we're probably headed toward a recession. He said that may be. He doesn't like talking that way because he thinks it reflects on him somehow. He at least acknowledged publicly yesterday how bad this economic fallout is going to be. 3,000 points off the Dow yesterday, but that hardly begins to tell the story of what's going to happen to so many millions of small businesses across this country.
Yeah, it's really quite extraordinary. And it is to your point. First of all, it was as recently as Sunday, 2 days ago, that Secretary Mnuchin said we're not in a recession.
Right.
I think we would be. And now the president is getting more honest about it. Look, I think there's almost no question we're going to be in a recession of substantial magnitude. Could it be as bad as 2008, 2009? Absolutely, it could be. Do we think that at the moment? We don't, but who knows? This is very unprecedented. This is unprecedented in the sense that we've never had this kind of total economic shutdown before. And it is, the fact is, it's the more we do on the public health side, the more we should do on the public health side, the harder that's going to be for the economy in the short run. And as you said, Willie, you're going to have thousands of small businesses shutting down with no particular way to reopen. Often the employees will disperse. They have no capital. And on the other end of the scale, you've got these major industries, airlines, asking for huge bailouts and things like that the government's going to have to consider. You can look at China, where they had double-digit 20% declines in consumption in January and February. It's starting to come back now, but they had massive, massive declines. And so I don't think yet, I think Washington's just beginning to come to grips with what it's going to have to do. There's an $850 billion stimulus package now floating around. We need to do something like that. I don't think the president's idea of a payroll tax is a good idea. I think it doesn't put money in the right people's hands quickly enough. But it's going to be Congress needs to act, and I don't think Congress yet completely grasps the severity of what's going to happen to this economy.
Steve, quick question. Just a question. It was interesting, not interesting. When we had the meltdown in 2008, you had 6 banks. You give them the money. How do you get money into the system? You announced a $2 trillion TARP, yet we're not set up as a government. We're not a socialist government to actually distribute that money. So how does it get out there?
Well, it depends what money and how you do it, but there are some ideas around. I think the best idea for general stimulus for the economy is something like a $1,000 rebate for every person. That may not sound like a lot in the context of what's going on, but that alone would be almost a $300 billion project. You could double it and make it a $600. But the thing that people are now starting to try to figure out is how to help small business and large business. And on the small business side, maybe through banks, give banks the credit to extend it to the individual businesses. They have the ability to do that. But we're going to also have to come to grips as a country with the whole idea of bailouts. So after 2008, we all said no more bailouts. Bailouts are over. But you've now got the airlines asking for $58 billion, and you're going to have hotels right behind that, and you're going to have all other leisure right behind that, and then you're going to have all kinds of other industries. And how does it work? Where does it stop? How much do we do? These are really tough questions, and I don't think Congress has yet even begun to come to grips with it.
And Mika, the president said explicitly yesterday at that news briefing that he's going to take care of the American airline industry because clearly they're going to need it.
Yeah, they are. A lot of industries will.
Thanks for checking out MSNBC on YouTube, and make sure you subscribe to stay up to date on the day's biggest stories. And you can click on any of the videos around us to watch more from Morning Joe and MSNBC. Thanks so much for watching.